Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm seeing lots of people coming in the chat. We got James from the UK, Long Island, Grand Rapids. You're all from much more fun places than I am. I'm here in Utah in the Domo HQ. And first, to introduce myself, because a lot of you probably don't recognize me. I know some of you, but I am filling in today as your host. My name is Ellie, and I am a product marketing manager here at Domo. And before I dive into a couple introductory things, I am going to share with all of you some instructions that you're going to need for today, for the working portion. So there's just some data sets that you need to connect to. And so I'm going to make sure I get a document shared with all of you. So let me pull that up really quick. It looks like it's not letting me put the Word doc in, so let me share it as a link. And I'll really quickly introduce your presenter today. Ellie is right, Utah sucks, don't move here. Yeah, we need to tell more people. Oh, that's just showing it as a doc, not the doc itself. Here, I'm gonna bring Lindsay onto the stage. She is presenting today, and I'm gonna see if she's better than me at sharing this document with all of you that you're gonna need today.
Let's give it a try. Can you hear me, Ellie?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, perfect. Let me go ahead and pull that up.
Okay, and as she does that, I have a couple of quick announcements. So first, I will throw up in the corner a QR code for our G2 review survey. If you take this survey, you will get a $25 gift card. So easy $25 if you haven't done it yet. Would definitely recommend it. And then I will also throw up in the other corner, this leads you to our Domopalooza site. And so if you have not signed up for Domopalooza, know that the early bird discount window is about to close. It ends on January 21st. And after that, it gets more expensive. So now's the time to get your tickets. Now's the time to convince your boss that you need to come to Domopalooza because it's so much fun. You're going to learn so much, get so much value out of it. And so, yeah, would definitely recommend coming. Okay, so Lindsay, looks like she shared that doc. If you copy paste that into your browser, let us know if that does not work for you. You don't need it quite yet, but it's something you'll need later in the webinar. So,
okay. Yeah, as far as what we'll need from that doc later that you can start now while I begin the webinar, it's step 2. There's a list of Domo governance and Domo stats data sets that you'll want to start connecting to if you don't have them connected already. But I'll walk through that process as well later on in the call, just giving you an opportunity to get a head start on that.
Awesome. And Jody says, weird to say Utah sucks and then promote Domopalooza. Well, we are kidding when we say Utah sucks. It's something we like to say in Utah so less people move here because too many people are moving here. So that's our little secret, is that we say Utah sucks, but I think it's a pretty fun place. Okay, the first QR code is too detailed for my screen resolution. Let me see. Thank you for bringing that up. I have, that one's small too. I was having this issue yesterday. What I had to do was make my screen as big as I could and then zoom in so close. But maybe as Lindsay's presenting, I can find what that link is, pop it in the chat. So if anyone wasn't able to get the QR code, you can. So with that, I will leave it to Lindsay. She is an ACE technical adoption engineer, and she is today going to walk you through some ways that you can automate your Domo environment audit and cleanup. So I will leave it to Lindsay. I'm going to hop back stage, and I will be here in the chat for you.
Awesome. Thanks, Ellie.
Yeah.
So today's discussion is going to be part of a larger series where we talk about data governance. This is just the first step in the process of automating. I don't want to go too deep in the workflow and everything today, just to avoid overwhelming everybody, but this gives us a good head start on just shedding a light on inefficiencies in your instance, areas that can be optimized. I think with the new year, we're often looking at new goals for the year, even every quarter, I think initiatives shift. So it's a good place to start by looking at what you currently have in your instance, what can be cleaned up to make space for, quality content being generated in the new year. So with that, I think data governance is often misunderstood as something punitive or limiting, which makes it kind of a daunting topic. But when it's done well, it does the opposite. It helps us create a lean, agile foundation that really empowers users to build trusted, high-quality content and drive meaningful return on investment from your Domo investment. And that's where governance becomes exciting. So a little bit about me is I have a pretty faceted experience with Domo. So I started out as a Domo customer years and years ago, and then switched gears to being a consulting partner for Domo. And then now I work internally on the ACE team where we, guide customers through tailored support, best practices, new features, and solutions. So today's mission is just to share practical workflows to keep your instance lean, efficient, and cost-effective using, my experience through those various roles. I think we all know there is a hidden cost to a cluttered instance. When you have unused cards, outdated data sets, orphan pages, you're consuming capacity in your instance that often, I think, reduces buy-in from your end users. If they can't find the data they're looking for, if they can't find those reports that they're looking for, they're going to eventually stop coming to your instance and just, write it off. So the bottom line is clean instances enable faster insights and reduce friction there. Additionally, there's the consumption aspect. You consume credits on your data sets stored in your instance, as well as data flows that are running. So when you don't have good insight on where you're maybe over consuming, or, those data flow schedules or connection settings, it can really get away from you. This is a data flow. The solution that I'm going to go through today is a data flow that I've shared with lots of my ACE customers. And, between all of those, we've been able to save about 20% in their consumption costs, making room for new initiatives, new creation. So that's just really exciting in general, but hopefully we can do the same for you today. So the solution to a cluttered instance is, this is just a practical example. So there are multiple solutions that you can enable in your instance, but today we'll be reviewing this one where step one is where we're starting by building a data flow to identify unused content and waste. Then from there, you guys will be able to create dashboards to visualize cleanup opportunities. I'll share with you just a high-level overview of a dashboard that I've created just quickly from the data, but I think you guys will be able to generate more there, more insights. But step three involves the output of our data flow being used as an input for a workflow to automate cleanup. So I'll go through a couple of different strategies with workflows from moderate to aggressive as far as cleanup efforts. And then from there, it's just an effort to monitor and refine. So creating a data set from the activity log that monitors the consumption saved by these efforts. That's always really exciting for stakeholders to see. And then just establishing ongoing governance. So building a sustainable governance cadence. So maybe running this data flow quarterly or yearly or monthly, depending on how often you want to address that. But just a tip would be to start conservatively with longer review periods and then tighten it as stakeholders build confidence in the process. So these are the cleanup strategies that I mentioned. On the left, number one is a moderate strategy where, you know, we're building this workflow today, or sorry, the data flow today, and then possibly a workflow down the road where we could rename cards or dashboards to include to be deleted on a specific date. So it just sends visual alerts to owners of those cards and dashboards that the content is being set to be deleted. And a real simple save would be for them to rename the content, adding activity onto that content, which removes them from the next audit. So this is low risk, minimizes disruption while fostering awareness. The next one would be a tiered notifications with escalations. So it goes through a weekly process, but basically the workflow would automate notifications being sent to content owners that the content has been flagged on the audit, giving them a couple of weeks to address it by either tagging that content as needed or removing it themselves. And then down the line, removing that content through another workflow. And then the final one is an aggressive solution, not one that I would usually recommend, but if you have a lot of content that, like orphaned cards, nobody's got eyes on those, so you could just implement a workflow that just deletes those orphan cards, you know, after they've been orphaned for a set amount of days. You could do that with data sets, but again, that's not one that I would recommend, but I've seen it done. So step one for today's call is creating that cleanup data flow. And then you guys can get started on creating your dashboards to evaluate your instance hygiene and identify improvement opportunities. And then you guys could share that dashboard before the next webinar where we go through the workflow with those content owners so that they have access to visualize what needs to be cleaned up and kind of put the onus on them to get those cleaned up. So with that, we'll dive into the instance audit data flow upload instructions that we shared earlier. I'm just going to quickly look in the chat just to make sure there were no issues accessing that.
Yeah, I think there's been no issues accessing. A couple people have had issues with the video. I'm not sure, but it seems like if you refresh the page, the video keeps working. So sorry about that, everyone. If you need us to go back any steps, if you miss something big, just holler in the chat and we'll bring it up. But yeah, seems like refreshing the pages is working.
Okay. And I see there's a question about if you automate the deletion of cards and dashboards, are they permanently deleted? My understanding is you could reach out to support within a specific time frame. I think it's about maybe 15 to 30 days, 15 being on the safe side, to see if you can retrieve those. But that is why I recommend having the content owners clean up that over automating the cleanup, or, you know, setting a multi-step process, giving owners, you know, ample time to address it before you delete it. So from that instructions page, if you guys are ready to dive into it, I provided 2 different links here For most everybody, you're going to click on this second link. Most everyone doesn't have access to this split filter tile in Magic ETL yet. But this link is a more holistic data flow where you can have eyes on all of your content within your instance with that split filter, because it spits out everything you haven't filtered for the audit as well. So this is a great one to come back to once the split filter has been released, and then you can update your data flow. But for now, if everybody clicks this link, you should be able to just copy this JSON file and then in a blank canvas within Dataflows, and let me know if you're not seeing any of this, if it's too small. You can open up Magic ETL and then just paste. So from there, step 2 is where we're connecting to those data sets. The first one being, let me go back, the governance pages and cards data set. And if you don't already have this one, I've identified in that list the connector that you're going to need in the first part. So you're going to look for the Domo governance first. And if you don't already have an account set up, you will need to be an admin within your instance, I believe, to grab the access token to set this up. Let's see. Is it still too small? Sorry. Are you guys able to see what I'm working with here? Okay. Hopefully you can see it. If you are an admin and you haven't set up the key, the access key for retrieving from the Domo stats or Domo governance connector, you're just going to go to authentication. I know this is the new nav, but still in the old navigation, you should be able to access under authentication access tokens. And this is where you could go to generate an access token to then use to set up your credentials for these data sets. Okay, so next step would be to retrieve the pages and cards report here. If you don't already have it, I do. So I'm going to exit out of here and grab it. Next step would be the activity log. Same process, but this is going to be a Domo stats connector. From there, I'm going to choose the one I've already uploaded and connected to. And then the next one is going to be card fields and beast modes. I'm going to take a moment here just to check the chat, give you guys some time to connect to those. Someone post a list of the governance data sets in order. Yes, that's in the instructions. They should be in order from top to bottom here, as well as a screenshot. Thank you, David, for adding that list. Let's see. Okay, I see a question about what would make a card an orphan. So oftentimes people will delete dashboards and not delete the cards within them, if that's the intent. And then those cards, if they don't exist on any other dashboards or App Studio environments, then they become orphaned. They exist nowhere. So then they show up here where I'm grabbing the pages from pages and cards, just grouping by pages afterwards. Sorry, grouping by cards and then counting the number of distinct page IDs to see if there are any pages that they exist on. That's one of the parameters for orphaned and inactive cards here. The other is to check the activity log to see if it's been viewed within a set amount of time. And highlighted in green here are all of the filters here, which is where you guys can adjust those parameters to fit the needs of your organization. So for instance, when I'm defining inactive pages, I'm looking at an interval of 90 days. So if they haven't been accessed within the last 90 days, it's going to flag it as an inactive page here. And then on this constants tile, I'm recommending the action of delete. Again, you can change the recommended actions here. It's not actually going to delete it. It's just going to flag it for deletion so that you guys can choose how you want to address that in your workflow down the road when it comes to automating. So again, we're grabbing the activity log to grab the last viewed time for both pages and cards. And we're bringing in the pages associated with each card to identify how many pages, if any, it exists on so that we can filter for those orphan cards and inactive cards. Next up is going to be our dataset tags. So this is a Domo stats connector. And what I'm doing here is looking for dataset tags. And if you're unfamiliar with dataset tags, you have the ability to add tags here for each of your data sets. I definitely recommend it when it comes to governance. To adding these tags, they are helpful. When it comes to workflow automation with regards to this effort, I have a prompt that tags all of the data sets and data flows that need to be reviewed for their schedule. Maybe the schedule is running too often by the parameters set here, or it's inactive. It has no cards associated with it. It has no downstream data flows associated with it. Basically, it has no effect on the environment. It's just sitting there consuming credits. But my workflow that I'll show in the next webinar tags those to be either reviewed or deleted. Now, the objective is that the entity owner is notified that it's been tagged, and then they go and remove the schedule reviewed, or sorry, they remove the tag that prompts them to review the schedule and replaces it with schedule reviewed so that it does not come through the next audit. Same with if it was flagged for deletion, they tag it with reviewed needed if they want to keep it instead of have it deleted for some reason. And there could be reasons, some people bring in data sets to be used down the line. It's not ready yet. You're still consuming credits on it. So I would consider removing it from the environment until it is needed. Either way, you could tag it with reviewed needed to keep it within your instance. So that is what the datasets tags dataset is used for. And of course, we will need to bring in our datasets dataset, which is a Domo governance dataset here. Next up is Dataflow details, which is also a Domo governance dataset. So from here, we are bringing in the number of cards associated with the output data sets on data flows so that we can determine how many cards are associated with the data flow. And then from data flow details, we're grabbing the number of input data sets for the data flow, the number of data flows associated with data sets, and then joining that back up here to determine the downstream lineage, which we will then filter on down the line. Next up, we need to bring in credit usage from Domo stats. And this is a simple way to just identify the average daily executions based on the SKU ID from this data set, omitting manual executions. Sometimes when we're bringing in data flows or data sets, we're running them a lot more than we regularly would. So we don't want to check those manual executions. We want to take into account the actual executions that are set based on a schedule. And then the average monthly credits used. So the average monthly credits used is taken into consideration up here for, actually, we're just spitting that out into the output data set. We're looking at the schedule settings to determine overactive data sets. And again, this is something you guys want to determine for your organization. I have it set to flag it if it's executing more than twice a day. I understand there are lots of data sets that run every 15 minutes. You're just going to tag those with schedule reviewed so that they don't show up in the next audit. But again, you can adjust the parameters there. These are pretty detailed filters here. But basically what it boils down to is we're looking to ensure for inactive data sets that are being flagged for deletion, there are 0 cards associated, there are 0 data flows associated. It wasn't created in the last 30 days. I want to give people time to do something with those data sets. And it's not, I have Domo in here because some reports you guys may not use in a downstream data flow. You may just be accessing the Domo one. You can remove that if you want to flag those. Write back data sets often have no cards associated and no other data flows associated with them. So we want to omit those there because they do have an alternative need. And then the approval center, if you guys are using the approval center, likely that's not going to be associated with any cards or data flows. Again, you can adjust these filters however you see fit, but those are the ones, the most common ones I've seen when implementing this data flow. And it's checking to make sure that it's not been already tagged as reviewed needed, as I mentioned, through that data set tags connection. Just going to take a second here to check the chat, make sure you guys have time to connect here. Okay. As far as have not been accessed, does that include mobile views as well or only desktop views? That includes all views here. When I'm looking at viewed actions and viewed embedded actions. So even if you have a dashboard embedded on another page, it's going to capture those views as well. In previous iterations, I've excluded the viewed portion on my card audit and just use the pages just to flag orphaned cards in the recommended for deletion. But I have had a few customers that have liked bringing in the viewed flag as well. Again, you can remove it if you don't want to apply it to your cards. By removing it, that's a safer bet. But again, you determine how you want to automate the use of this data set afterwards. So you could just simply rename those cards to flag them for deletion. And if somebody's viewing that every day, they just can rename the card to ensure that it's not deleted in another automation. Does this take into account data sets that feed views? If you're referring to the cards associated with the data set, we're not flagging any data sets that have cards associated as an object to delete. So hopefully that answers that question. As far as the question regarding enterprise accounts or standard accounts for the credit aspect of this, that would be something I would defer to your account executive for, as far as the effective consumption on your contract. So unfortunately, that's not something I can answer here. Did they post a JSON for the ETL somewhere? Yes, someone answered that. Why does Domo have different connectors for Domo stats and Domo governance? So Domo stats is more geared towards the metadata. And then Domo governance is geared towards governance. So giving you a list of your cards and dashboards and all of that. The Domo stats gives us more activity data. Oh, I see. Okay. Talking about a view of a data set. That's a good question. I actually don't have a whole lot of customers that use dataset views. I know there are lots of use cases for it. I haven't accounted for that within this data flow. I'd have to go look at the data sets available or the data available within these data sets to see if we can identify that. But again, we're not deleting anything with this data flow. We're just flagging it. So if you go in there and you see that it feeds a view from the lineage, you can go ahead and tag it as needed. Okay, perfect. So dataset views are great. I agree. It's a great way to save on consumption. Actually, it consumes half the credits of a regular data set. Awesome. Okay, so lastly, we need to bring in our data flow tags. Again, this is so we can identify data flows that have already been reviewed. Oh, grabbed the wrong one. Which is a Domo stats connector. Okay, last step is going to be naming our output and our data flow. I already have one created, so I'm not going to complete this portion. I'll just switch over to the one that I've created. But again, I just wanted to reiterate where you're going to change the parameters is within these filter tiles. And again, I would reference that file that I shared today to go use the split filter version once that becomes available to the general public there. That's going to be a more holistic view. Basically, it adds the objects of active pages, active cards, active data sets, and data flows so that you can see how much of your content is being flagged for inefficiencies against your total content. I am not including legacy credits. I mean, the credit usage, I think it's going to be the same for every instance, regardless of your contract. It's just going to say how many credits you would be consuming on the standard credit consumption contract. So again, you'll want to reach out to your account executive for credit related questions, but I'll show you guys what the output looks like after this. So does anybody have any questions on this data flow, or should I pause, give you guys some more time to connect to those data sets?
We have a few questions in the chat if you want to
I'll take
those before moving on. Thanks, Lindsay.
Where can we find the schedule for the data set and data flows? I have data sets that run daily. Okay, so I tried to address this in the easiest way possible by using the credit usage data set. This is tracking the average daily executions. Again, not utilizing the manual executions in this calculation. I'm just looking at the standard executions to give everybody an out how often it is. There is not good governance data set or most stats data that gives the actual schedule, especially with regards to advanced schedule settings. There is an alternative solution that one of my colleagues has created that grabs that metadata in another data set, but we won't have time to review that on today's call. If it's something a lot of people are interested in, if this isn't sufficient, if there's a place to provide feedback, or if you want to put it in the chat, I'll try and bake that into the next webinar. Let's see. I can't connect to the input data sets if over half of them don't exist in our environment. So I addressed this earlier on in the call. If you have admin access, you can go and set up the credentials if you don't already have credentials shared with you to access Domo stats and Domo governance data sets. But if you do have admin access, you can go to the admin menu and search for access tokens. This is the new navigation. If you're in the old navigation, you're going to go to the admin menu, and then under authentication, there will be access tokens available. This is where you'll go to generate an access token, set the expiration period to use for the credentials to set that up. Alan Hyman said that they use a Jupyter notebook and the Domo API to grab scheduling data. Yeah, that's a great solution. And it's one I recommend if you have the technical ability on your team. Again, I'll try and bake the other solution that I have into the next call if there's enough interest there. And hopefully, maybe we can get it put as a Domo stats data set eventually. But I've found that this solution has been sufficient for what we're doing here to just grab that average executions. Excuse me. Okay. Let's see. I think we're good to move on to the next step. So this is the Dataflow that I have implemented. This is version 1 where we don't have split filters activated. I'll show you what version 2 looks like with the split filters, because I think split filters is a great enhancement. And I want you guys to get excited about it. So version 2, I've shared this in the link, that JSON file again. So when you guys do have access to split filters, this tile here, you have the ability to create the filters for the inactive pages and then output the remaining rows as active pages. Again, that comes into play when we're looking at the percentage of our environment that is flagged as an inefficiency. So it's not completely necessary for the cleanup effort, but it is nice to view. Okay, Mark, if you do have admin access and somebody else created those credentials, you can go ahead and check. Let's see. If we go to the dataset menu, actually, sorry, different view. There is a place to access credentials in the old menu, and now I'm struggling to find it. I apologize, but luckily most of you are probably in that old menu. It would exist here under the datasets menu. There would be a key on the left-hand side, which is where you'd go and grab those credentials and share them with yourself, or you can see the owner of those credentials and ask them to share them with you. So let's take a look at our output data set that we created. This has appended all of those objects here for you. So we have, if it's a card or a data flow, for example, here, we've got that data. We have data set ID listed cards. This is so that you guys can link in beast mode. These are easily go access them. And that's something I'll show you here in a minute. We have the entity names, owners, the recommended action here, which is key. So you can filter for the recommended actions of delete or review schedule. And then where it matters, you know, the average monthly credits used. So I'm just going to go ahead and share with you guys the dashboard that I mentioned earlier. This is a really simple dashboard, high level, looking at the credit usage data set to see how credit has been saved over time through this effort. And then this one, it just lists all of your objects. So let's say I just wanted to filter to just view the cards. I'm filtering here, and then I can click this beast mode link that links directly to that card where I can then go and delete. A real quick solution for cleaning up orphaned cards is going to be within the admin menu under content. You can go and filter for cards on no dashboards or app pages. Select all visible. You'll have to continue scrolling if not all are visible, but then you could just go and delete all of those. Again, that's if you want to. It's just a simple way to do that without having to implement a workflow. Let's go back to this page here. In the next webinar, we'll address automating, notifying all these individuals. You could set up alerts on this card to let individuals know that they have new items flagged in the audit, or you could share this dashboard, set up as notifications as well. You can filter if you have users come in just for specific users in their content here. But let me dive in. I do want to share that beast mode with you guys to link the objects, because I do feel like that is super helpful when you're going in through this cleanup effort. So for example, let's actually go back. I just want to go review the schedule for these ones. It's been flagged. Actually, I don't want to look at that one. Let's see. All of these are not what I want to look at. So right here on the output data set, if we're going to look, back at settings. This one is not on flagged, but I'm using as an example. So let's say this is triggered to run every time any of these data sets have updated. That's super inefficient. And it's the way that a lot of organizations did set up in the beginning before the consumption model existed, because they're like, great, I can have as up-to-date data as possible. But in reality, nobody's viewing the data that often. So you want to make sure that it's either set up on an advanced schedule where you're only grabbing the days that people are looking at it, Monday through Friday, at a specific time. You want to update it in the morning, or however it looks for your organization. But from there, once you've done that, you can go in and tag the data flow. To schedule reviewed so that it doesn't come through the audit on the next run. So back to this card in that beast mode to link these objects. I'll see if I can share it here in the chat. If not, I'll add it to the instructions that I shared with you guys. But I'll just open this in Analyzer. And it's just a simple beast mode case statement. So I've shared it here in the chat, but I'm also going to go and add it to the instructions for whoever doesn't want to dig through the chat later for it when they actually create the card. Okay, so that is there for you guys as well. So yeah, that's what I wanted to cover today on the call. I'm going to look through the chat here again and see if I can address any other questions. Do you know when the split filter functionality is being rolled out? Oh, if you don't have beta access and you want beta access, reach out to your account executive to see if you can get it. I don't have a specific date on when it's meant to be released. I just know that beta customers can request access early. So I apologize for not having that date available. Let's see. Under features, oh, accounts. Okay, so James called out where to find those access tokens. So right here under data connections is where you can go and access the accounts that you owned. And then if you don't own it, you can create other credentials if you do have an access token. So you could just add new account. Let's say that, I mean, I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend reaching out to the original owner of the credentials so you're not creating multiple credentials for the same connector. But this API key is that access token that I mentioned retrieving. And then as far as the customer goes, this customer would be considered Domo-enablement. So it is just your instance name and your URL. So that's how you would set that up. And then you probably don't want to check this to allow other users to access the unencrypted credentials. I always omit that option and then just hit connect. So you would do that for Domo governance or Domo stats. Hopefully that answers that question there. Can you walk through that card a little more? We do see the beast mode code. Let's see. Dataflow tags governance data set to download. No, that should be available through the Domo stats connector. Let me just go make sure I named it correctly. So it's just called Dataflow tags and it is available through the Domo connector. Okay, there's a question going over the card a little more. Let me go back to that. So this card that I created is just a really simple one. I'm just linking the object, grabbing the entity owner, reviewing the schedule, grabbing the recommended action, and then displaying the average monthly credits used. So in theory, if you clear this out, that, clears up 101 credits being used every month. This is a review schedule one, so it probably would just reduce the credits used monthly. It's not flagging it for deletion, but in this case where it's being flagged for deletion, it'll clear out 23 credits. But you can add any of those fields that we brought in. If you're wanting to see when the card was last viewed or a page was last viewed, you bring in that column and so on. There was something I wanted to show you guys. Oh, I was just going to give you a high level look of that workflow that I'll be reviewing in the next webinar. And it's a really simple one. For those of you who have watched the AI agent webinar, then you should be able to tackle this pretty easily on your own. But I just utilize the AI agent task. And it's a pretty hefty prompt. If people are interested, I can share it in the instructions here if you want to try and tackle this on your own. This one basically groups the instance audit data set by entity owner and then creates a table. It basically sends that table that I just showed you, that table card, via email to each entity owner for the content that they own, linking it so that they get a notification that their items have been flagged for cleanup, and then they're able to just run with it from there. It's also instructing the agent to go in and tag data sets and data flows. So under the tools section, I've got create dataset tags. I've got the query with SQL, which is necessary to query that data set to identify the objects that need to be sent in the email, and then the send email to person tool. Again, I'll cover this in the next webinar. So if there are questions there, we can discuss them on that next call. But yeah, I'll definitely share the prompt in those instructions after the call. Under knowledge, it's just that instance audit data set that's being used. But that's just a really simple, quick AI agent workflow that helps you automate those instructions. Sorry, that helps you automate the process of cleanup. Again, this is not deleting anything. It's just tagging the data sets and data flows. I'd probably add to this renaming cards and pages that are being flagged for deletion if you want. Throw this in ChatGPT or an LLM and just say I want to rename cards or pages as well as the rest of the instructions and have it spit out that. Yeah, I'll just take a quick look at the questions again really quick. Let's see. Prompt, please. Okay. Okay, so this will give us enough time. Yeah, that's the idea. So I just wanted to introduce you guys to this data flow on the call today so that you guys can, you know, start the manual process of cleaning up if you want, get eyes on it. And then on the next webinar, we'll go through the process of automating cleanup, which is really exciting as well. Any other questions before we conclude? All right.
Okay. Thank you so much, Lindsay. This was amazing. And you did a great job of navigating, reading the chat, answering questions as you were going. I was very impressed. So like Lindsay said, she'll be back. So if you had questions that weren't answered or just want to continue diving into this more, hop on next time. And in the meantime, if you have questions, reach out to your CSM or the ACE team if you work with the ACE team. And thank you all so much. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you next time.